What's good, everybody? What's good? Happy Tuesday, yo. Happy Tuesday, man. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day so far. And thank you for joining me, man. Thank you for joining me. And welcome to another episode of the Jayson Estrera Show, where we talk about basketball, sports, and any topic that comes our way as accurate as possible. Now today, we have Jayson Tatum signing the largest contract in NBA history. But what does that mean for their duo and for their franchise moving forward? We'll also explore the potential free agents that the Lakers can sign, with all of these free agents making their decisions early. And we're also going to take another look at the Klay Thompson situation, not only in Dallas, but the end of an era with the Warriors. And as always, it's your host, your boy, Jayson Estrera. Now, we're going to get right into it. There have been no major signings so far. We do have, I literally saw this walking to my setup, which is what's his name? Which is Kemba Walker is retiring. New York City legend, step back, handle crazy, really represented for the little guys out there. Super skillful, was a really good player in his time, in spots. But, he's obviously just retired. Couldn't maintain a spot in the league. Congratulations to him. Had one of the craziest shots in college basketball with that step back. Yeah, man. Congrats to him. And hope he does well, man. Hope he's all right moving forward, man. Now, we're gonna get right into it. I'll be honest with you. We are going to get right into it. Now, excuse me. Jayson Tatum has now signed the largest contract in NBA history at $315 million. And I wanted to add Jaylen Brown here because I do think that this is important. And also the reality is they're probably going to lose this quote-unquote record soon enough whenever Luka signs or whatnot. But because the money is going up in the league, right? And, someone was saying, why do they always say it's a record? Because every single time it happens, it's a fucking record. The money, like we said, keeps going up in the league. And you gotta love the story of, at least for me, right? I love the story of these two guys who, very quiet, let's call it what it is. These two guys have gotten quite a bit of hate in their young NBA careers. Everyone forgets these guys are young. These guys are like 25, 26 years old. I think Jaylen Brown is 27. And so the success that they've had in a short time in their career, we got to give them their props for it. And what they haven't received in awards, what they haven't received in stuff like that, the money has got to be a great equalizer, right? At the end of the day, all the recognition and all that shit, it don't pay your bills. It don't put food on the table for, all the high fives. It don't put food on the table for your family. It indirectly does, but not, the contract, is the one that allows their family to the generational wealth, the thing that goes beyond the NBA, right? The rest of his family who aren't NBA players, don't work in the NBA, probably don't really know shit about basketball, they get to directly benefit from this, right? And obviously with the NBA championship, it's just got to be a great, it's been a great, it's been a great year for Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Now, for me, what this brings me to is this reminds me of Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, and the root of a lot of their issues, right? Because, and just from my perspective, right? In front of all of us, Michael Jordan has always given Scottie Pippen the credit that I think he deserves, right? One of the greatest players of all time, one of the greatest defenders of all time. And Jordan always says he couldn't have done it without him. Now, like we just said, recognition from your peers, your friends, your competitors is great, right? But sometimes when you don't win certain awards, it feels like that recognition is not validated to some people, right? To some people. And you add on top of that the money situation that the Bulls had with Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan, where Scottie Pippen was getting severely underpaid, and then they eventually gave Jordan everything, the 30 million, 32 million, 36. They gave him everything. And you are now in a situation with these two players, Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, where Jaylen Brown feels like he's been slighted on a lot of these awards, whether it's the All-NBA teams, All-Defensive teams, and you got Jayson Tatum, who feels like he got slighted on MVP awards, but he did end up on the All-NBA team. Now, Jaylen Brown, who year after year has, been left off of these awards. We could take a look real quick. Let's see how many years he's gotten. Let's see how many years Brown has gotten. Let's see. He was an All-NBA second team in 2022-2023. All-Star this year, last year, and in 2020-2021. Now, if we look at Tatum is a 5-time All-Star, 4-time All-NBA player, and is an MVP, has been an MVP candidate in the past 3 years. And so Tatum, who's, gotten a little bit more recognition than Jaylen Brown in terms of the awards, now they've given Jaylen Brown that award in the form of the Eastern Conference Finals MVP and the NBA Finals MVP. And, it's one of those things, even though I personally thought that Jayson Tatum should have won it, I could see why they gave it to Jaylen Brown. And, he's also deserving of it, right? It's not to say he didn't deserve it. And then when you add the fact that they're both making a ton of money, Tatum making slightly more than Brown, but it's not to the point where it puts them in this weird spot. It's like they're both, it's like the team has really, yeah, obviously I don't know who's doing the awards or whatnot, but it seems like they're trying their best to divvy up awards and to divvy up money as evenly and as accurately as they can to both Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And does that affect their relationship? Do they look at each other as, equals, but also understanding the responsibility that each of them have, right? Jaylen Brown takes more of the wing and the guard responsibility on defense, and Jayson Tatum is the point of attack on offense and the person that initiates their offense, right? And then they both kind of support each other in those roles, and they really do it together, right? Even though I think, you could argue Tatum is slightly better. I'm sure some people argue Jaylen Brown is slightly better. The awards and the money, I think, is getting split up pretty evenly. And I hope that this will go a long way when it comes to their relationship, keeping it strong and not fracturing them, right? I hope that, with the awards, Jaylen Brown, at least to his team, to his people, can feel that he's being validated, right? And, for Tatum, who didn't get the awards, now maybe he feels validated with this money that he's getting, right? And so, I think that the Celtics are trying to avoid that, right? They've built a great team. And to add on to this, keeping Derek White as well is a big deal, right? So when you think about what this Boston Celtics team is doing right now, they're spending their money and they're really trying to keep this unit together for what seems like a dynasty run over the next 5 to 10 years or so, right? To really keep this ball rolling and run the table, see if they can win a couple more. And hopefully that this goes a long way with keeping that relationship between Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown intact, because you got to realize everyone's human, right? When you see numbers, when you see awards, we all want to say, "Oh, you don't give a fuck about that. You won the championship. Oh, you don't give a fuck about that. You da 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 da. You got money too." But everything is relative, right? When someone comes into your job, that's a new hire, that's getting paid as much, if not more than you, because of the way things are now, don't you look at them a certain way? Don't you feel a certain way? Now, put yourself in these guys' shoes, right? Imagine Jayson Tatum got all of the awards. Imagine Jayson Tatum got Eastern Conference Finals MVP, NBA Finals MVP. He's the All-NBA player. Now he gets the contract. Imagine how Jaylen Brown might feel after that. Even though it's only but so much money, right? It's only $11 million, right? But to you, it might say, damn, he really is like the best player on the team, number one player on the team, and they don't acknowledge me, even if, it could get to that, and something like that could seep into this relationship. Like, let's not act like everyone is just, you know what I'm saying? Let's be realistic, right? Everyone is just human. And, can't help but compare sometimes. But I think with them getting split up, with the awards, with the money, like I said, hopefully it goes a really long way for them. Now, real duos. Oh man, I guess we'll you know what? We'll talk about it. I guess for me, the other part about these two guys sticking together. And, with all the free agents getting signed, Klay Thompson, Paul George, all these people teaming up, right? All of it sounds great on paper, and we're going to talk a little bit more about, Klay Thompson in particular and Paul George today. Everything looks great on paper. Everything looks great on if you play with them on 2K, right? But how will they actually play together? The Clippers, we saw those names. You're like, oh shit, and then you see it on the floor, and it's like, and I get it, people aren't healthy, but still, Phoenix Suns, the same thing. And I get health was still a factor, but we saw how they looked against the Minnesota Timberwolves, right? With two stars and maybe a third, right? So everything isn't just put a bunch of names on the paper, right? And with that being said, these newly formed teams and these younger teams, you can't simulate the experience and the losses that Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown have gone through. Right? Everyone looks at the numbers that Tatum and Brown had, especially Jayson Tatum. But none of us know what it felt like to lose in that series against the Warriors when they probably thought they had a real chance. None of us know what it feels like when they lost to the Miami Heat last year. And so when you see a Jayson Tatum that is so willing to pass, that's so willing to give up those points, when he was a 30 points per game scorer in this league. And we've only had, I get that we've gotten more of those over the years, but when we look at the history of the game, we've only had so many of them. And oftentimes they're the same names, right? So for him to give that up to win a championship, there's nothing you could put on a board. There's nothing that you could tell someone that can teach them that. That's something that they have to go through themselves. Excuse me. We've spoken about the loss, the heartbreaking loss that Luka and them potentially could have gone through, right? I don't know if they genuinely thought they had a chance to win. I'm sure that in their mind and in their confidence they did, even though they had injuries and whatnot. But does that now catapult him and his team, right? Does he sacrifice some of his play to win a championship? You can't simulate these losses. You just have to go through them, right? So, when we look at some of these new teams, you got to give them some time. And in that time, you have these guys who just got the monkey off of their back and are looking around and probably feel like nobody in the league could fuck with us, right? Everybody want to talk about Joel Embiid and Paul George and Jokic and blah. I understand that Kristaps Porzingis cannot guard those guys. I fully understand that. But you have a player that can pull them out, get mismatches, switches, the defense that they play compared to those teams. You still got to go through the Boston Celtics. And like I said, the things that they've gone through, you can't teach it. So, kudos to these guys. Hopefully they've learned from history and from that Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen situation. And, hopefully that this is Boston's way of managing personalities and managing that moving forward. So let's move on and take a look at another signing. And there's a lot of rumors. Where is this dog? There's a lot of rumors about this, but Donovan Mitchell has agreed on a 3-year, $150.3 million max contract extension that includes a player option for the 2027-2028 season. And yeah, there were rumors about him and Darius Garland. That very well could have just been a ploy to try to, get to a contract. But, obviously he signed to stay along with them. And for me, I guess in this way, choosing Garland choosing Mitchell as opposed to Garland, and I thought that he would try to go to LA personally, because that situation with what he does well fits LeBron and LA. And maybe he just wants to be that guy, and he feels like Cleveland could be the place for it. And don't get me wrong, Donovan Mitchell is a certified bucket. He's, especially when he's rolling, he is damn near impossible to guard. So I understand why the Cavaliers would wanna keep him. And here's the other part too. What do teams do, right? Because if you don't get him or you just let him go, that money goes nowhere, and then you end up having to sign some bums anyway for a 2-year contract. It's really like a no-win sometimes, right? And someone like Mitchell, where maybe they told him a plan, right? The money looked right, and maybe they gave him a plan on how they're going to try to build around him or whatnot. Who knows, right? So you can't blame him for that. But I do think it's just interesting, because even though they had some success and they have some good young pieces, for me, no one's going to go to Cleveland. No one has ever gone to Cleveland. So in terms of getting another star on your team, because the two little guards thing is just it's not working at the moment. And yeah, I don't know. To me, it's a little bit of a questionable thing for Donovan Mitchell. But now that eliminates someone that could have gone to the Lakers. So, this brings me to who can they get, right? Now, a lot of folks were talking about DeMar DeRozan doing a trade for DeMar DeRozan potentially, I think it is, right? Sign and trade possibilities. The Lakers' interest is genuine, and the Bulls are open to sign and trade possibilities, but any sign and trade would have to be at least 3 years and at less annual salary than what DeRozan wants. I think for LA, their pitch to him is going to be coming back home to LA. And just me personally, I think it's what makes sense. At this point, everyone has been talking about Zach LaVine. His contract is impossible. His play is, maybe it's the injuries, but he's just not the. He just doesn't attack the paint as much as you would want. He's very much a jump shooter, a streaky jump shooter. Injury prone. He's just a tough person to try and go get, especially with that contract that he has going with him. So really for the Lakers, you're stuck with trying to get DeMar DeRozan. And I guess we kind of spoke on that a little bit. But I think personally, with Chicago doing what they had just done with Caruso, Lonzo Ball is injured, and they got some drafts. Kobe White was coming alive last year. Their best bet right now is to try to rebuild, and a part of that is going to have to be with getting rid of DeMar DeRozan. I think they need to just start over, completely fresh. And for the Lakers, if they're to get DeMar, you get a scorer, a mid-range guy, a crunch time closer type of player, right? So now you don't have to rely on LeBron James and Anthony Davis. You have DeMar who can get mismatches, play isolation basketball, and get good shots at the end of games. The only issue is there's still no shooting. Right? That's why I think Donovan Mitchell would have been so key for them, because instead of getting a star player and then also getting a shooter, he killed two birds with one stone. He's a star player and he can shoot the shit out of the ball too. We've seen it, right? We've seen it many times. Donovan Mitchell can shoot the shit out of the ball, right? And getting open shots with LeBron and Anthony Davis on the floor, you got to expect that Mitchell would have shot at a really high clip. So for DeRozan, you're looking at, I get that LeBron James has shot much better from the three-point line, right? But you have a rim runner and a slasher basically in Bron, a rim runner and a slasher basically in DeRozan. And kind of the same thing for Anthony Davis, because Anthony Davis is going to face up and do fall-away jumpers and do fadeaways similar to DeRozan. And the issue is they both occupy the same spots, meaning if DeRozan is going to work on the mid-post, that means that Anthony Davis can't be there, so he's going to get relegated to the corner. And if Anthony Davis is in the post, then DeRozan is also going to get relegated to the corner. So how will that dynamic work, right? As opposed to a Donovan Mitchell who could have really spaced the floor out for them, right? He could shoot from the fucking logo. So that's something that they're going to have to figure out. It's going to look similar to when they had Russ and they were struggling to find threes in the game, right? And then they're going to end up having DeRozan shoot a bunch of threes, which he's not great at. He can hit them, not great at them. So how will that look? We will see. So with that being said, we also want to touch on this LeBron James contract, because he had opted out of his contract to, one, reconstruct his deal, but also to potentially take a pay cut if they aren't able to sign anyone, or if they are able to sign someone, right? Basically, go sign someone and I'll figure out what to do with the leftover, essentially, is what it sounds like. Now, I heard, and I hadn't heard this before, I heard that there's a potential for LeBron to do what he was doing before, which is to sign a bunch of one-year deals, which got me to think, all right, if the Lakers aren't able to sign anyone, and Bron says, all right, I'm just going to take up that money for this 1-year contract and re-sign next year. Because next year, who are the free agents, right? That was my first thought. I'm like, who are going to be the free agents next year? And it got me thinking, okay, so next year, and this would break my heart. This fool better not. But Jalen Brunson could potentially be available next year. Although he's they've talked about him signing an extension, and they keep talking about taking a pay cut. But there's also, Donovan Mitchell's reportedly signing, so he's off the table. Brandon Ingram is still up in the air, right? So he could potentially open up. I know Jamal Murray had just signed. I don't know what Julius Randle's contract is looking like, although I wouldn't like the pairing of him with like an Anthony Davis. But here's the big one. If for example, the Miami Heat don't sign an extension and either don't trade him, or he trades without guaranteeing that he's going to re-sign with that team, Jimmy Butler could potentially be a free agent next summer, and also Kyrie Irving. So could LeBron James be trying to figure a way to, if they don't sign anyone this year, he can take his money this year, 1-year contract, next summer potentially sign someone, right? And then he could take the pay cut next year, and it wouldn't hurt him so much because he already got his money from this year. And I think if he signs a contract like that, to a lot of folks around the league, I think it will raise an eyebrow. I'm sure phone calls will be made. I'm sure conversations will be had. And, you got to expect someone like him to be thinking ahead, right? If they can't get a player this year, how does next year look like? Will he try to position for that now? So I think that's something to look for. Will he sign a multi-year deal? Will he sign a 1-year deal to provide potential flexibility? So that is something to take a look at. He is LeBron James, and he's been known to do what he wants. I think he's done this before, right, where he signed 1-year deals to try to make things work for the team. So yeah, that's something to look at going into next year. Obviously, that's looking really, really far ahead. But now we take a look at, there's obviously been a lot of talks about Klay Thompson going to the Dallas Mavericks, right? And I think it leads me to ask, who do you blame for the fall of their dynasty, right? Because I think this is years in the making. I don't think this is something that just happened. This didn't just happen, right? And if we're to believe some of the reports, right? Like, for example, the Warriors were planning to have Thompson come off of the bench, right, again next year. You had a rumor that was saying that, Draymond Green is very loud and outspoken about his frustrations, and no one spoke about how Klay Thompson was handling the situation. If you saw him pouting on the bench and hitting chairs, They basically said, how do you think it was for him in practice, in day to day, insinuating that he was being a problem behind closed doors and it was just the public couldn't see it. Now, a part of it could just be a bit of a smear campaign to try to, a little bit of a fuck you to him, because let's be honest, they want to devalue him in a way, right? And for Klay Thompson, you really take offense to that because you got them championships. You were a huge part of that. And, for me, I would really point the finger at, one, the front office, and two, Draymond Green. Because, and maybe I'm misremembering this, right? But to what I remember, they were signing Draymond Green's extension in the middle of the season. It wasn't really an issue. He's gotten back-to-back 4-year, $100 million deals from the Warriors. And to get $25 million a year for 2 years was like pulling teeth for Klay Thompson. And like we said earlier, we're only human. Now, this is his boy, right? Draymond Green is his boy. But when you're giving me a hard time, and we're supposed to be a trio, Steph has gotten his money, even though he's taken pay cuts before. Draymond's gotten his money. And Draymond, I mean, the last time he averaged double digits was 2017, 2018. Since then, it's 7.4, 8, 7, 7.5, 8.5, 8.6. Rebounds since 2017-18, which was 7.6, 7.3, 6.2, 7.1, 7.3, 7.2, 7.2. Not like it's gone up with less people there. But he's gotten his money. And if you're Klay Thompson, you got to be looking around like, wait, what the fuck? I had one bad year. And that bad year was 18 a game? And then you take into account the issue that Draymond Green had with Kevin Durant. I've already spoken about this. I think he has a hand in that too. I think the front office has a hand in that and in the way that they handled that situation. But I think even before that, Steph has always come off to me as he stays to himself, not a super loud, outgoing person. I think it was Draymond for me. For me, it was Draymond that I thought would be able to connect with KD. Come to find out these years later, Kevin Durant didn't really feel like he was a part of the group. And hey, maybe they split the responsibility there, right? Klay Thompson and Steph. But when you're the vocal leader of the group, when you're the rah-rah guy in Draymond, I would look for you to be that person to do that. And maybe he didn't do that. That's why they had that issue on the court. The way that Draymond yelled at him. Didn't resign. What if the Warriors had chosen Kevin Durant instead of Draymond in that time? What if they made the basketball decision rather than the decision that had to do with the quote-unquote heart and soul of the team? And trust me, I think he's important. I think what he does is important. But they could have gotten another enforcer. I get that his intuition on defense and some of the things that he's able to do, like passing the basketball, is you can't teach. But let's not pretend like Steph Curry and Kevin Durant aren't on that team, right? You take let's say Steven Adams is in that position. Let's just to throw a name. Someone that can set picks, an enforcer, go get rebounds. He doesn't need to go and dribble the ball. You put the ball in Steph Curry's hand more and in Kevin Durant's hand more, I think good things will happen still. Don't get it twisted, Draymond. But the Warriors front office obviously made their decision, right? So that's on them also. And then you had the Jordan Poole situation, when they could have had him. You also had the front office choosing James Wiseman instead of LaMelo Ball. You could have been setting up the future already. You don't even miss a beat, right? You don't end up in a situation where Steph is in his late 30s trying to teach this 20-year-old how to play basketball, and Steph can't really do the shit that he used to. Steph is still Steph. Imagine how that might have translated the competition of that team. Imagine Steph, Clay, LaMelo, Kevin Durant. We're talking about an enforcer in Draymond Green, and he can help a team. But for the shit that he's seemingly done, even behind the scenes, because it looks like he has a great relationship with the ownership group. That's how it comes off as. He's got a great relationship with those guys. And he can seemingly do whatever the fuck he wants on this Warriors team. And then you add on top of that all the shit that he's done in this past season. He got his money last year. He's good. And when it was up for Klay Thompson, they played hardball. And you got to look at the front office, and you got to look at Draymond. I think they are the reasons for the collapse of the Warriors. Oh. Now, speaking of Klay Thompson, I was watching Tim Hardaway Jr. highlights and just, plays that they run for him to get a sense of how Klay Thompson might look in that situation, right? And very quickly, you realize that they have nothing for this guy. It's very few sets. It's a lot of when he gets open in the corner.
What's been different about the defense from your perspective tonight? From ours?
This leads to a little bit of the concern that I have, where Klay Thompson has had the luxury of being able to play in an offense that's been catered to him and Steph Curry for pretty much his entire career, right? The plays that they have are geared towards getting them shots. And that's something that gets taught, those principles, those concepts It's something that gets taught to everyone coming into that organization. And now you put him in a situation where Luka Doncic is going to dribble the ball fucking 400 times a game. And then he's going to complain and bitch to the referees. And now, granted, obviously, this is just off of what we've already seen happen. I hope that he can adjust some of these things, right? Because he is a great player. But a competitor like Klay Thompson, right? How will he react to his own teammate being like that? Now, maybe he can get through to him, right? Because Klay Thompson very quietly is a super fiery, competitive, fierce player. You don't like playing defense and you don't have those qualities, right? So how will that translate? Can he and the rest of the team help Luka Doncic in that sense instead of getting frustrated, right? You know, a couple games go by where Klay is kind of just chilling at the corner, not getting the shots. How will that look? Because you got to think, right? Last year, Luka scored 34 a game. Kyrie was at like 26, 27 a game. Tim Hardaway Jr. scored like 12, 13 a game last year or 14 a game last year on I think he was getting up like 12 shots a game. Let's see. Yeah, he's been getting up about 12 shots a game in his time on the Mavericks. He's like a 42% field goal 42% from the field and probably close to 37%, 38% from three versus, and that's good for, how many did I say? 14 a game, right? Compare that to a Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson is, for his career, takes roughly 16.1 shots, and this is with the off years, and is a 19.16 points per game scorer. In those years where he's scoring 20 plus a game, he's getting up 17, 16, 18 shots a game, 46, 47% shooter, 42, 41% from three. I mean, you're just getting a different player. So will the Dallas Mavericks get him those extra, if you're thinking about Tim Hardaway, that's an additional 6 shots, 5 to 6 shots a game that you're going to need to find for Klay Thompson. 3 of them being threes, because Klay is getting up about 9 to 10 threes a game. So will Luka adjust? I don't really worry about Kyrie. I think he knows what to do and he's done it before. Can Luka adjust to that, right? And maybe just the respect for Klay, his NBA champion, competitive. I'm sure it won't take long for them to get into shooting competitions to really realize this guy is fucking him. So how quickly will those things translate? I've been expecting Klay Thompson to come in fucking hot. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Klay shoot the shit out of the ball and mess around and really put up some crazy numbers, because he's always been capable of it, right? And he's a person that doesn't need the ball to dribble around and stuff, but if he could shoot a really high clip for them and get to 18 to 20 a game, they're going to be a problem. Now, speaking of the fit, right? I also wanted to talk a little bit more about this Joel Embiid, Paul George fit. Because, like I said, sort of like Klay Thompson, initially it sounds good, right? But I wanted to take a look at it. And the only comparison for me would be a Jimmy Butler, right? Because both of them are mid-range killers, Paul George and Jimmy. Both play defense, right? They both don't need the ball in their hand constantly. They both can, make plays with the ball. Both can close out games if they need to. Decent shooters. They're not the best. They can make them, but so they're actually very similar, right? And then you think about that time, right, where Ben Simmons, Jimmy Butler, Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, JJ Redick, they had Mike Scott on the team. Against the Raptors. And obviously in this situation, Tyrese Maxey would be Ben Simmons. But I think that kind of works out in the spacing sense, right? Because Ben Simmons obviously can't shoot threes. He has size and, the defense, but the trade-off is the spacing and the shooting on offense, right? So he gets to space the floor out. And now, and by the way, this is the other, on a tangent, right? Because while I was watching, I ended up watching the Raptors versus the 76ers series, and I was like, fuck, I think it's I'll talk about it in a second, actually. Scratch that. But having a Tyrese Maxey who can shoot the ball and still get a foot in the paint consistently. I think that's why I was kind of calling for him to be more of a second option, because what he can do on a consistent basis, which is get into the paint, goes a long way. So now, maybe Paul George will score more, but Tyrese Maxey needs to stay aggressive and needs to be able to get a drive to get a foot into the paint. It'll get open shots for everyone. And it'll be very, very helpful. But like I said, I think this works because Joel Embiid doesn't have to make this massive adjustment. He's already played with a Jimmy Butler. So I think that goes a long way. You also have, Joel Embiid he's done a great job of managing these end of game situations. If you've seen the way that they've managed the end of games, the way he slows it down, the way he picks who's going to get the matchup, the way he picks out when he's going to post up, it's very Jokic-like, and it's very... If you play against him in the playoffs, you're going to have a problem. And I think if he were healthy, he would have, just the way that style plays out, it was going to be a problem for anyone no matter what. And now you take out a Tobias Harris and now you put Paul George there, and I think it just makes it that much better, right? So that outlet pass now goes to a Paul George who, Tobias Harris is either going to shoot or pass. And now you have a Paul George who, for the amount of shit that he's always gotten, he can make a play. Yeah, I know he went 0 for whatever on threes that one game, but at least he was shooting the fucking ball. You'd rather have that than someone that don't shoot the ball. You got to take the bad with the good. But I do think that this fit is well, and I hope that Joel Embiid can get his ass outside and go run some miles. He needs to drop some weight. He needs to get healthy. He needs to go do some leg workouts, because Your time span right now is basically this contract. Because Joel Embiid is not getting any younger. When you look at a big man his size at 34 years of age, you will no longer be... I highly doubt that you will be the MVP that we know you as. Your window is within the next 3 to 4 years. That's it. Because after then, now you're going to have to look for younger stars to be the one to lead you guys to the championship. A la Shaq and Dwayne Wade. So this is his window. And if he wants to extend his lifespan in the NBA, he needs to lose the weight. It's just a reality, right? He's gotten massive. It looks like he moves slower and slower. And I get that he moves fluid. I get that he moves great. But I think that he could just get in much better shape to make this deeper run in the playoffs. He has to now expect to play an additional like 4 to 5 weeks of basketball. Longer than what he's used to. Yeah, fuck the 65 games. You have to get through the 65 games and through round 1, round 2, round 3, and the finals. That needs to be his expectation, and he needs to train like that's his expectation. Right? So, him and Paul George, I hope they get in the lab. You know, we've seen this, I don't want to say it, this like Shaq and Kobe kind of like do it. We've seen this kind of style work where you have a really good wing player with a really good big. It works, right? And then you modernize it where they can both shoot threes. They could both handle the ball. It can work. We've seen this style work. Obviously, we're going to have to depend on the players around him. But you have fucking Tyrese Maxey there also. Kelly Oubre has been great for y'all. The part on Joel is the ball's in his court, right? He got to go get his ass in shape, and that's just the truth of the matter. So, and now after that long spiel that I just had about Joel Embiid, I'm gonna give him some love also, because I do think that narratives have played such a massive role in the NBA, right? Oh, someone's not a champion, they're not this X, Y, and Z. Or someone is a champion, that means that they're X, Y, and Z. And I don't think it's that fucking simple. There are people that, excuse me, oh, you don't make it to the finals, you're not a championship caliber team or a championship caliber player, you don't have the tool, you don't have what it takes. It's bullshit. It's bullshit, right? It's a tool that they use to try to take credit away from players. Because I'll take the Philadelphia 76ers, for example. How do people look at Joel Embiid? Oh, the process has not worked, right? Jimmy Butler, everyone's starting to give him shit. Everyone loves playoff Jimmy, but never got it done. Ben Simmons, we don't even have to talk about the amount of shit that he's gotten. JJ Redick has talked a million times about how he's not a champion. Now, imagine Kawhi Leonard didn't hit that shot because it bounced around a couple times, so we can't say that it didn't have some luck involved in that shot. And obviously Kawhi Leonard is a great player and had 41 that night. It was doing his thing. But let's say the shot doesn't go in. They go into overtime. And let's just say, because obviously it's tied up, anything can happen. Let's say the Philadelphia 76ers win. All of a sudden, an additional 5 minutes of basketball. All of a sudden, oh, they're championship caliber players. Joel Embiid is a championship caliber star. Oh, he can lead a team there. Oh, Ben Simmons, a point guard. Look at his defense. All of these, Jimmy Butler, like all of these narratives all of a sudden change because there's a finals appearance. Jimmy Butler would have what? 2 finals appearances or 2 or 3 or whatever. 3 finals appearances. All of a sudden, everyone looks at these people in a much different light because of one shot that didn't bounce in and an extra 5 minutes of basketball. And then let's just say, because the Warriors got hurt that year, let's say that the 76ers fucked around and actually won a championship. All of a sudden, Joel Embiid is potentially could have been a 2-time MVP this year with an NBA championship. Jimmy Butler is an NBA champion. JJ Redick is an NBA champion. Do you realize how quickly the narrative all of a sudden changes behind these players because of a fucking shiny trophy? We discredit all of the other work that they've done up until that point because of a trophy. And I get it. They play for wins and losses. If you're not first, you're last. I hear all that shit. But let's not pretend like these players are not great. Or let's not pretend like, you never got to the final, you don't know what it takes. Sometimes they do because the losses have shown them. They just maybe didn't get an opportunity. So many things happen during a season. But it allows these narratives to live, right? And obviously, if Embiid and Paul George get over the hump, but it's just, to me, it's just so crazy how much things can change if that shot from Kawhi Leonard doesn't go in. Now, all of a sudden, the way we look at Kawhi Leonard on the Clippers, look at him like, motherfucker, you're a one-time champion. Like, we look at totally different, right? And, it's just these narratives. It's in basketball, sometimes folks, they fall for them, right? Sometimes they fall for them, and that's all that they know and see. But to kind of add on to this narrative conversation, right? We always have this old head, new head conversation, but let's take a look at this. Dirk is 18. This is what Charles Barkley had to say about Scottie Pippen and Dirk, right? Dirk is 18, kicking our ass. He had like 25 at half. Scottie said, I'm going to lock him down in the second half. Dirk finished with 52, and this was a pickup game that they had, an exhibition game, and I believe in 1997. And Dirk said, Scottie was my idol. I was disappointed. That's an arrogant ass beyond belief.
Like NBA player. Dirk's like 18. This is when Scottie was quote unquote the best defender in the world. So Dirk is kicking our ass. He's got like 25 at halftime. And me and Michael like, Scottie, you got to pick it up a little bit. I'm going to lock him down in the second half. I'm going to lock him down in the second half. Dirk finished with like 52. So I was like, dude, who the hell are you? He starts talking.
And, it's funny to me when you see Barkley talking about some of the new generation of players, as if he didn't witness that firsthand in real time. And I've spoken about this before. A lot of times when folks reminisce, you only remember the good times, right? If especially players and athletes, you're not gonna remember all the times you missed an assignment, missed the pass, you fucking didn't do this, didn't do that. You're just gonna remember all the good things, right? The problem is when they start acting like their shit don't stink. And if this exhibition was in 1997, that was a 32-year-old Scottie Pippen, right? NBA champion Scottie Pippen. And he was getting his ass bust by an 18-year-old Dirk Nowitzki. This reminds me of, You remember when Rudy Gobert was going against like a 18, 17-year-old Wemby getting barbecued? Let's not act like these new cats are not different. And I get it. Listen. I know there's a lot of idiots in the NBA still that don't know plays, that fuck up things over. It's still a part of it, right? And there's even some great players that are like that. But this notion that some of these greats, some of the greatest players that we have, can't play in other era. You were getting cooked by Dirk. How the fuck is Scottie Pippen guarding Kevin Durant, dog? Like, I know they've talked about it, right? They've spoken about it, and I'll give him this caveat. Playing an unknown 18-year-old, no scouting reports, no numbers, no data. That stuff matters, especially to a defender. That stuff matters, right? Doing your homework matters. But this notion that all of these old guys would have been able to lock up these guys nowadays, like, you got to be out of your goddamn mind. You got to be out of your goddamn mind. Because it happened then to a Dirk Nowitzki that don't move like some of these guys do. And this isn't me saying Dirk is one of the greatest players of all time. Players got to do a lot to get to where he is. But let's just talk about the way folks move now, the way they score, some of the shit that they do. I get it. Some of it is stupid, but it's hard to guard. And, you know, when we see Charles Barkley shitting on the new generation and talking like this about an 18-year-old cooking an NBA champion as Scottie Pippen, I think should go to show you how delusional sometimes these guys could be. You know what I'm saying? Like, we can go back and look at y'all footage. And if we find the full games, we could also point out where y'all fucked up. But don't let... Oh, everyone talks about... Oh, everyone watches highlights now. That's the only thing we have of y'all too from back then. We only have your good plays. What if we had all of your bad plays? How would you look? You know what I'm saying? So let's like keep shit as it is, man. Keep everything even. Be like, whatchamacallit? Critique when it's necessary, but also like be real with yourselves and who you guys were in your time. Too often I think we see these guys acting like their shit don't stink, and there was proof right there that, you know, you guys were getting cooked by a early evolution in Dirk Nowitzki. How the fuck would y'all have dealt with Victor Wembanyama? Talking about, oh, I would have bodied him, I would have muscled him up, da-da-da-da-da. 18-year-old Dirk Nowitzki. And when this man put the Dallas, he got this Dallas Mavericks a championship and was torching the Miami Heat. LeBron, Wade, and Chris Bosh. So I get who Dirk is also. But yeah, man. But just give respect to everybody, man. Everybody great. But you know, that's going to do it for me for today. Thank y'all for hanging out with me as always, listening to me yap. There was not that much news. Maybe some news broke right now. Matter of fact, let's check it out. Maybe something broke right now. First of all, how in the fuck does what's his name, bro? How the fuck does Tobias Harris keep getting bread like this? I mean, but anyway, I'll see y'all tomorrow. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. Please like, comment, subscribe, all that good shit, because it helps the channel. And as always, you could have been anywhere on the internet, but you were here with me, and I appreciate you for that. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see y'all tomorrow, man. Thank you. I'll see y'all tomorrow.